Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Real Reds Talk, an authentic football fan channel made in Manchester. The transfer window is officially open, and we have a transfer wizard alongside us today. James, you know what it is? Nothing but it's out online, which a lot of people do. So, yeah, very reliable, very respectable. Thank you for coming on. And how are we?
Yeah, good. Yeah, always happy to join. Always happy to be here and take part in this. Obviously, it's always a good timing when we get together for these, as it's never quiet. We've got really good luck with that. Sometimes that's on purpose. Sometimes it's just lucky. But yeah, happy to be here.
Yeah, I think the Branthwaite, are we classing that as thingy, Sam? As like timing the bid going in? Do
Yeah.
you reckon?
Well,
Is that our magic? We're going to claim that?
I put in a chat,
Yeah,
didn't I,
we should.
today? There was news. There was no news for like 3.5 hours. I was like, this is a bit weird. And then as soon as I said it, the Branthwaite bid
Yeah,
came
yeah,
out. I was
yeah.
like, there it is.
Yeah, we're going to get into transfers in a moment, but I just want to ask you, James, obviously we've got the Euros kicking off tonight. Despite America not being in it, are you going to be paying a lot of attention to that? Something you'd be invested in?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean we've got the Copa coming up here,
Mm-hmm.
which will be interesting as well. But definitely, I'll watch the Euros. I can't go the whole summer without watching meaningful games of football. So yeah, I will be invested.
Yeah, we've been deprived of football, haven't we? So I'm very excited, as you can already see with my England shirt on. Sam, we're also excited about transfers, aren't we? Very excited.
Yeah, it's been kicking off. Obviously, we'll talk on like all the different transfers and stuff like that. Should we just go into it? Should I just start asking questions?
Let's just bomb it. That's what everyone's here for. It. Let's just fucking
nobody
cares.
Nobody cares about the pleb banter and us talking about like nobody gives a shit. Let's just get on with it, right? Big name on the agenda. James Jared Branthwaite came out yesterday, and then some more just before we went live. 35 million bid plus 8 on add-ons has been rejected, as we expected. Everybody's worried about the 70 million pound fee. I'm personally not, but everybody's sort of thing. This is just Everton setting the stall out, isn't it? And then United are going in low. The Legria thing. What's the status on that? And then do you think United are looking at multiple different positions? Because Lenny Yoro came out with David Ornstein, and Ignacio, I think, was reportedly as well. Do you think they're setting up multiple things, and then they've got a key target, and if they don't execute it, they can just move on to the next one? Is that what's happening there?
Yeah, I think it's a bit different to how it used to be, where, if you think about it in the past, they often work through one major target, get kind of desperate, and then if they failed, then they'd start talking to the next one, and then they'd start talking, and each one of those was just like couple weeks, and takes a lot of times, and then half the time they go back to the first one and end up paying too much money for them, and the difference now is certainly putting these all together. I mean, they're in contact with or have made contact with as many as 6 center backs at this point in time, with the goal of at least 1, maybe 2, depending on the costs, depending on who they can obtain. Obviously, if you're looking at somebody like if you've fallen all the way down to a list with like a Chalobah, you'd probably be thinking you're trying to get 2. If you're going all the way down to there. So yeah, they're lining it up. Yoro, the interesting one about Lenny Yoro is if they can get him, probably they'll still get somebody else, almost guaranteed. Like if you see Yoro come in, I would say we'll definitely get 2 center backs, because when it's described as an opportunity, that's almost one of those like, the budget be damned, we're gonna buy this player. You don't want to miss. You have to be in there, like when Jude Bellingham was available, like when Erling Haaland was available. That level of young talent at center back. So that's a cool one to have had Ornstein confirmed, because obviously everybody knows that he's, the Madrid links, but I've been talking about for a while that United were hanging around and saying, if you don't go, we're here and we've got something for you. But yeah, Braithwaite, honestly, going quite as expected, which I'm pretty happy about.
Yeah, do you think? Sorry, Nick.
No, go for it.
Do you think it'll end up getting done in terms of like maybe around 50 million? Because obviously 35 million, I think it's a fair offer for him, considering the thing. Obviously, we were talking on yesterday when we covered the story, and we've got an Everton fan who's a friend of Nick's, and he was demanding 70 million. He was demanding all the money in the world, which fair enough. He's an Everton fan. I get it. I understand.
Yeah,
it's fine.
Yeah.
But do you think when somewhere meet in the middle, do you think that's capable of happening, or do you think this is an Everton thing where they're just going to stick the heels in and just demand 70 million no matter what?
Yeah, good question. I think that on the United's, and I can only give it from, outside of my opinion, I can only give it from what I'm hearing on one side, which is the United side of it. I think they wouldn't be approaching this if they didn't think they were going to compromise closer to that price. I'm not saying that every deal we get into is going to result in a success, because part of this whole process is being willing to move quick one to the next, and that's the evolution of doing transfers properly. But they do at least have an optimism that they could, change a little bit. And the strategy has always been this one first, because of that June 30 date and the PSR rules and things like that, which is all very complicated, but you still see that in some of the Times articles and other things talking about how they do have some pressure for that. I think their director, as well as Sean Dyche, came out and said they have to sell players, this summer. They've said it. They've admitted it. So I think that if they didn't have that, I'd be less optimistic on that point. Now they're obviously almost in the throes of a takeover as we speak, of someone getting in there. But
another one.
Again, right. If if this one works and the last one made it to the stages, much further stages, and didn't work, I guess this one would be cleaner, but who knows, right? That doesn't really change PSR for June 30th or anything like that. They can't take any more points deductions. So yeah, I'm optimistic, and I think United side are optimistic. And I was speaking to a fairly good, well-sourced person on the other side as well, who thinks it's probably going to happen, and that's good too. So yeah, I'm optimistic, and I do think that in the end, it's going to take United getting up to something like 40 to 45 plus some add-ons. I don't think they want to go much above that, though, on the United side, because of the alternatives that they have and because of all the spending they got to do elsewhere. Yeah, I really don't think they will go above, maybe 40 to 45 plus 10. I don't think they will go above that. I think in the past we would have. I mean, we saw that with Hoyland last year. It was supposed to be a 40 to 50 million deal, and they go up to 72 million. That's got to end. No matter what, that has to end, because it's people think we're going to do it now, and they should be ready to move on to other targets.
I don't remember the last time United walked away from a deal. I really don't. I don't remember the last time we went, we're not paying that. We always end up just paying it. So if what you say is true, I hope so, because I'd love to see United just go, we're not paying it, and go to the next one.
Yeah.
Just before I dive into the spine of the team, James, I want to get a little bit of just a clarity on that Euro situation, if possible. What is it with Madrid? Are they just not going for him, or are they not? Is it too pricey? Are they thinking, like, what's the specifics there? Do we think?
So yeah, two issues with Madrid, right? So Madrid are kind of do this on occasion. I don't know what you would call this, but one of the things Madrid do fairly often is kind of lead young players on a little bit in the hopes that they'll kind of run down their contracts, put more pressure on the selling clubs, things like that, especially in situations where they don't want to pay that much money. But they can do that because they're Madrid, and it works. But on occasion, they don't follow through on that, and they leave the players in the lurch a little bit. And the situation I think they have is one, of course, it's Madrid. Of course, they're very wealthy, but they've also paid. I mean, the financial commitment to Mbappe is insane. I mean, an insane number. We've never seen anything like it before in the free agent market in terms of signing on bonuses, wages. It's probably the highest ever, right? And I think that they do need to make a little bit of space. So yeah, it's sort of like they're stalling a bit is part of what happens, and they may go through it, they may not. I would gather that they're probably stalling because they hope to get some other things done first before doing it, but they don't want to lose it, so they're not saying they're not going to do it. And obviously in United's case, they'd be saying, well, we're here, we're ready to make a deal. You know, you may not get this opportunity again. You may get stuck. Madrid may not come in for you. And by then we will have, won't have the money. We'll have made deals. And Liverpool probably doing the same thing, given that they're linked to it as well. So yeah, I think it's a good strategy. I wouldn't say it's still likely, because at any point Madrid could go in, but not that I hope it works out the same. But they did this with Donny van de Beek. They had a deal pretty much lined up for him years and years ago, and maybe it was because of COVID finances. I don't know. They just canceled it, and then we went for him, and obviously it didn't work out. But they've done this before, and you never really know which way it's going to go with them. But they definitely keep those young players on strings sometimes.
Well, obviously it's a priority position, so I'd love to get both. I don't know how realistic it is. I'd love to get Branthwaite and Doro, because I think they're both fantastic players. But United are probably going to be looking to assessing the spine of the team, which would include the midfield as well. What's the situation with that? Because one, I'm eager to hear what kind of player we want. So what profile do we want first and foremost? Two, does it depend on Casemiro going? And three, how much are they looking to spend, do you think?
Yeah, all good questions. The type of player, obviously your first choice midfield is Kobbie Mainoo and Bruno Fernandes, no doubt, right? Next season, that would be the intention. And the third player then you'd really need and want, as I can tell, to be someone who is, physically solid, technical, but safe on the ball, someone who's not going to be rushing around like crazy too much, is a little bit more secure. I think in discussing kind of moving forward on a few fronts, you can almost take the end of last season, and look at it as a bit of an example of things, right? When you kind of plugged Amrabat back in there and had him and Kobbie Mainoo forming a bit more of a two, in defense, especially where they're tracking those inside, the runners and marking players, and a little bit more like how we used to play, right? For a long time, at least in the midfield. I think that gives you a little bit of a model. Amrabat, when he played well, safe, secure in possession, good passer, but not an adventurous necessarily passer. Good on the ball, strong, these types of things. So I think that kind of matches the profile. Like, if Amrabat had worked out, that would probably be a good example of what we might be looking for there. Whether it depends on it's interesting, because you see all these names, forward, strikers, center backs, but like nobody's talking about names for the midfield, right? When you're looking at a lot of the reports that are coming out. And I think there's two reasons for that. Number one is the targets they've been scouting are probably outside of England for the most part. There's not that much value in the English market when it comes to the midfield. You're either going down to the Championship and getting young prospects. I'm not saying they wouldn't necessarily do that, but those are more like your second signings.
Yeah.
Or you have to pay way over the odds for a player like Onana, to bring them in. The one name that I would keep an eye on is João Gomez at Wolves, for sure, from the Premier League. Because those there were good links to him, and I think he would be a good choice, quality choice that might be in a decent price, the 40-50 range. But otherwise, I think you're going outside. You're going to Portugal, João Neves, Yulman.
That's what I was waiting for. That's the name I was waiting for.
Is he not that player? Is he not out of our price point, though, James? Like 100 million?
I think he is. That's the problem, right? I think he is out of our price point. I would love to say that we could get him. I'm not saying there was like an official offer or anything like that with some of the news that came out earlier, but I think there was probably a communication of the general area in which United would look to do something through Jorge Mendes. And, they're pretty stringent on it. The rumors have already moved on to PSG being the ones looking at him now. And that's Mendes making his market. That's what he does, going around and bringing these things from different clubs. And, that's what he's good at. I'm wary, not because the Portuguese league is good, but it's certainly the prices there have gone crazy in a lot of ways, right? In terms of inflation.
Benfica especially,
Enzo,
they all absolutely rinse
Enzo,
people.
Nunez, João Felix, these are fees that they're not even bad players, their fees are just out of control. They're way too much. Way too much. And so it's a good market because you actually get a lot of successes from Portugal, but it's like it's almost become then you have to pay insane amounts of money to get someone decent out of Portugal. And that's just that makes it not a good market anymore. I think there's good options there, like Ignacio. I think you'll mend, but more when you go towards Sporting, right? I think you get better deals than Benfica.
If Yumlin came to United, I think I'd have to do the show with pants off because that guy excites me. He's really exciting. I would. I
really like him.
Yeah,
I really like him. I think he's solid. I think he's really good at everything and a real grafter, and so I think that he's like not the exciting choice. Someone like João Neves in some ways, but
solid 7 out of 10.
Choice.
Solid 7 out of 10 every game.
Exactly. Every game he's going to give you what you want. Yeah. I like that. So go ahead. Yeah.
No, I was just going to say, because I just sprung to my mind now, before you get into the outgoings and stuff, Sam, because we're speaking about João Neves, we've got a members video that we're dropping today. If the video hits 100 likes, we'll drop it right now. So yeah, that's with João Neves, Bruno Fernandes, and Kobbie Mainoo, and how that could potentially work, and why it could not work as well. So, for the members in the chat, if we hit 100 likes, we'll put the link in the comments straight away. Sorry, Sam. Outgoings.
Yeah, So we've talked about a lot of incomings there, and if other stuff pops into your head, James, like chuck it in as well. But
I just wanted to mention, I know you guys are following all of the news and stuff, right? Like quickly on it, but someone had just sent to me that, that there's already another report of United going to make another offer for Braithwaite
today.
Okay.
And you look at this, this is what we're talking about when you're talking about this new way of operating. Personal terms agreed, an offer the next day, when the window opened.
Yeah.
And then maybe even another offer by that evening. And the point is move quick, get what you want, or move on, you know? And so we don't engage in these sagas. So this doesn't mean we're gonna get him with the second offer, but it means that at least they feel there's some sort of dialogue possible to get somewhere.
I love this way of operating.
Good. Yeah, you asked me one other question I did want to answer, which was about if we had to move on Casemiro to make the midfield. And I think that's the other reason we haven't heard much on the midfield names, because they haven't advanced this stage of talking to people in the same way that they have on the center backs and the forwards. Right, okay. Once they start talking, that's when the names come out, because the agents start talking, the players start talking, everybody starts talking, right? So I think that it's not that I wouldn't. We have to see there is a budget, right? And they have to see what they end up spending at center back, because it's so important. And we literally don't have a center back. Like Varane has departed, and we really Maguire's good. I thought he had a good season, but there's the problems you have there. Lissandro's been back a few games the whole year, like you cannot not sign a center back. I'm not saying you can't get away with not signing a midfield, but you cannot not sign a center back. It's almost like you literally don't even have a team yet unless you sign a center back now. So I think that it's going to be about where the money goes there in terms of the midfield targets. If you can get a good deal on a center back, get some sales out, get Casemiro out, then you might be looking at like a lot of money for a midfielder versus going someone safe like Fofana, for example, right? Where it's 20-25 million, probably an easy deal to do, a solid player, but not really a star, He's not going to be one of the best sixes in football, I don't think, in my opinion anyway. So I think you've got those two different options there, just kind of based on where the budget is elsewhere. You need it, but maybe, I guess how I'd put it is, there's not, beyond João Neves, who's extremely expensive, I don't know there's like a standout, unmissable type player. Whereas at center back, they do feel that Braithwaite is a player they don't want to miss on, they don't want to pass by, and same with Lenny Yoro, right? So you can kind of think of it that way in terms of opportunities as well, and they'll get to that eventually.
Yeah, well, you just touched on Casemiro leaving. I wanted to talk outgoings because we saw a little bit at the beginning of the week. Greenwood with going to Juve for potentially maybe a loan deal with an obligation to buy, 40 million being dashed around. Sancho being rumored to be for like 40+ million. what other players are being shopped around that you know of that have been like actively trying to be sold in order to raise the funds in order to get in like the Branthwaites, the João Neves, for example? What other players are looking at? And I saw there was a report where it was like Højlund, Lissandro Onana, Dalot, Cobby. There was one more. Garnacho are the only ones that are untouchable. Yeah. Everybody else up for sale. Who's being pushed? Do you know of?
Not that many are being pushed out the door necessarily because, you know, like they don't want to make depth signings this summer so much, right? As well, you want to sign good players who will fit right in the team and fix things up. Sometimes it can disrupt things if too many players leave. That's not to say they're not open to it, but in terms of actively selling, it's more about people who can't really get along, you know, with the team, that don't really fit within what they're trying to do, to the point of it causing problems, right? And so obviously Sancho, obviously Greenwood, with Ten Hag staying, there's no chance either of those come back at this point in time, which I think is good. I think it's good for everybody, right?
Casemiro, because of the possible fallout at the FA Cup final.
There's probably no chance he comes back. There's almost no chance that he comes back. I mean, whether you believe what you believe with regards to the FA Cup final, he was pretty muted, didn't stick around for the celebrations. It's
tells you everything you need to know, really.
You know, the writing is on the wall there, right? Yeah. I mean, you don't want to celebrate a trophy. I mean, he celebrated the League Cup like mad last year. Mm-hmm. This is a bigger trophy against better opposition, and he was nowhere to be seen, frankly. And even on the pitch, very quiet, very
reserved one, especially with Ten Hag as well.
He got straight on a plane as well, didn't he? Like literally his next thing, he was on a plane. Like gone.
Yep. Now he's at Disney World or whatever, so that's fine.
Maybe they'll sign him.
Well, maybe he'll go to the MLS. You know, like we talk about Saudi, but MLS have been, you know,
into Miami
and such, wanting to get some of these Spanish league stars in. You know, former Spanish league stars in, and drum up the interest and all that. I could see it happening. But yeah, otherwise, I think the other name consider is definitely Eriksen. Not that he's going to fetch a bunch of money, but because there's not really a place for him in the team, right? He's on decent wages though, so I mean, they could even give him to someone for free if it gets the wages off. I think they'd be very, very interested in doing that. Wan-Bissaka, it's touch and go because I think you could debate a lot of things about Wan-Bissaka, especially as a utility player. But I think you can also debate whether there's names in the market that if it's worth spending the budget this year on that backup right back position, especially with how kind of robust Dalot is.
Played every game,
didn't he? You're not expecting him to get injured.
No.
Yeah, you're not expecting him to get injured. Not expecting him to miss games. You probably won't. You're going to be a little easier next year. You know, you do need to spend any of your budget on a backup right back right now, or, you know, get a left back and wait and kind of see what happens. And so those would be the two. I mean, those aren't exciting names, but the minute they get like a Braithwaite in, if Euro becomes possible, then Maguire's fast on the market. And that's not because of anything bad, but simply because he's got value, you know, and he's going to want to play. And he absolutely will have a place in someone's team, especially in England. So, yeah.
We just had a super chat put in from Reece saying, "What's the story with Rashford?" I don't know if that's just like a kind of general question or, what's the crack with Rashford? Is he definitely a no-go this summer? Oh,
well, he's definitely not I just have to think about this.
That's James. He knows something and he's not willing to tell us. That's what that pause is.
They're at least open to it, I would suspect. It's not a full-blown conclusion.
They're open to it.
Yeah.
I don't think they want to. The club, I don't think they want to sell. So much as it might have been indicated at certain times, they're open to it. I think actually almost the reverse. Maybe it depends who, but I think there are definitely people involved who really would like and want to keep Rashford and want to believe that when set up right, he will be as good as he's been at times. But at the same time, it's understanding, again, it really comes down to people have to really want to be there too. And that's not so much a personal sense. There's a lot of this comes down to it's really easy for all of us to get caught up in like almost the emotional aspects of these decisions. Either way, right? And the emotional feelings of, uh, want him to stay, want him to go, doesn't care, does care, these types of things. Those are minor, really. There's been a lot of discussions between Rashford and the management and Wilcox, Dave Brailsford, etc. Has so much more to do with his place in the team and what they want to do moving forward. Because everybody needs to be able to make decisions about their career with eyes open, right? Players are doing that all the time. Bruno Fernandes is doing the same thing in a large respect, right? I'm sure we'll touch on that, but he's also considering, what is my place in the team? What is my place in the future? What does it hold? Well, so is Marcus Rashford, is considering that for sure, because everybody wants to. The players are well aware of what they're good at and not good at. Frankly, they are. They know when they're doing something they're not good at, and they know when they're struggling, and they know when they're not doing well. And most of them definitely want to make sure, because otherwise it doesn't work for anybody, right? It doesn't work for us, for the club, for Rashford, for anyone if he has another season like last one next year, right? That's no good. It doesn't work for anyone, frankly. I understand Bruno had a good end to his season, but the first 2/3 of the season were pretty bad from him as well. And a lot of that has come down to certain aspects of the way that we were playing, aspects of like how McTominay was being deployed as the more advanced midfielder instead of him taking up positions in the box, things like that. So, long-winded answer to they got to talk about it, and it's definitely not one to ignore, but it is detailed, but it is tactical. This is not emotional, really. It's actually all very logical, and I don't think Rashford wants to leave United, but he also knows and is responsible for his career too, to say, if I'm not going to be needed in the way that works best for me, where my skill set is on display most effectively, then yeah, probably should go elsewhere. And some of that is, we could blame the players, we can do all that, but a lot of that is, the last 10 years, how many players, and someone comes in, they do this job, someone comes in, they do this job, and it's just back and forth, and you can't really blame people too much for being up and down all the time, because what they're being asked to do changes every single season. And that's no good for anyone and anybody's career. So I would definitely keep an eye on it. There is interest in him. There is interest in him. There 100% is. They haven't engaged in anything with any other club at this point in time. But they're aware of it. They know it. Everybody knows it. And I understand our fans weren't really up on Marcus Rashford this year, but I promise you other football clubs don't view him that way. He is very, very, very valuable. When you just have to listen to players talk about him,
the talent's there. There's no doubt.
Interviews,
there's no doubt the talent's there. Like it's just
everybody knows what he brings.
His head is not, for whatever reason, this season just wasn't there. He wasn't in the game.
It's not aligned. It's not aligned, and it needs to be for him, and it should be, right? for everybody involved, it should be aligned, for the club, for him, for his future, for everything. So hopefully, I hope they resolve it. But I don't like to leave it too open-ended, but it is open-ended at this point in time.
Understandable. I was reading a couple of bits from Laurie's article that he put out today about Rashford and a couple of interesting things tactically, which I thought was very interesting. So I'd be eager to see what happens with him this summer, but I don't think he'll stay. Just the last thing on outgoings, and this is a bit of a nerdy question, if you will, but can you talk to us about the wages removed from the bill a little bit? So obviously with Iran, Marshall, how much of an effect does it actually have on recruitment? Because a lot of people talk about, we need to sell players to get a certain fee for them. But what's like the percentage-wise? Is that the right question to say? How much of an effect does it actually have? Do you know what I'm trying to say?
Yep. I do. I love doing the numbers on these things. And I'll try to explain it in a way that's definitely understandable as well. So the problem that United have had is that they had some really big losses in the end of the COVID years, where you're not getting a lot of credit and write-offs for that. Now, There's two different concepts here. One of them is there's a percentage of spending you can't go over. So United make, just for simple numbers, if they made $1 billion coming in, they could only spend up to 700 million on wages, transfers, all agent fees, coaches, all of the football stuff together. Okay, that's not a problem. That's UEFA's FFP caps. There's no issues there. They're well below the cap actually, and it's pretty healthy. The problem, and we'll go back to this. The reason for that is where there is a problem is the simple profit and loss aspect of the club. This means money in versus money out. Okay, that's it. Money in versus money out in terms of what's counted. So, like any business, the amount of money it takes in versus how much it has to spend. And profit and sustainability rules say that you can only lose a certain amount of money per year. It can be fun. The owner can keep pumping money in. That doesn't count as income. It can keep the business running, even though it's losing a bunch of money. Like say you were at a lemonade stand and you took in $10, but it cost you $15. Your parents gave you an extra $5 when you're a kid. Well, that's how you keep the lemonade stand running, but you're still losing money every year, right?
Yeah.
And that's essentially what's happened. We've been borrowing against debt, right? So we're losing money every year. The debt is climbing. Jim's put in another 200 million into the club to help keep things functioning and running, but we've been losing a lot of money. Wages are huge in this because it's about expenses. So Rafael Varane leaves, we save 15 million a year on his wages, right? What we have to do on this front is essentially, I think, stay about level if we're going to not fall afoul of these profit and sustainability rules. Like we can't spend more money per year than we've done this last year. And we don't have to spend less, but we can't spend more. So 15 million comes off. What does that mean? Well, if you sign a play, it's all math on this, but if you sign a 50 million player, that's going to be spread over 5 years. So that's 10 of the 15.
I'm following
up, right?
I'm getting there, yeah.
Nick's head's fell off now at this point.
Yeah.
His head's just
a monkey with symbols in my head like that.
So if you have, but just think about that. We saved 15 million a year.
Okay.
A 50 million player is only costing you 10 million a year. So you have 5 million left. So if you get that 50 million player on 100,000 a week, where it's 5 million in wages, his fee is 10 million a year, his wages are 5 million a year. That's a wash with Rafael Varane. Okay? Him leaving, same as that. So what is our budget? Our budget is Varane and Martial's wages. That's what it is at the moment, pre-sales. So when you see like a 50, 70 million budget, why? Well, because if we're saving 500,000-600,000 a week, 30 million a year, you could buy about 70 to 80 million worth of players plus wages. And as long as you're not paying 200,000 a week, right? You have to get them good young players on 100, 125, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then you can fit them into that. Beyond that,
is this what's known as amortization? Is this what you're talking
amortization? About? Yeah, that the fee gets cut out over the 5-year contract. Yeah. Beyond that, you need sales. You need sales that add money to the club, and you do get the wages off when you sell too. So it is a double benefit. But usually, when you sell, you're replacing the wage you lost with the wage you buy. Yeah. So you can kind of look more directly at just the fees. Where it does help a lot is, say you sell Mason Greenwood, okay, 25, 30 million profit because we owe no money on him, right? He's an academy product. That's straight money. So you imagine that's like as much as the departures of Varane and Martial alone, right? Just from that sale. So in the next year, you could buy a 70 million player for that. It's only going to give you the profit for 1 year, but we're kind of in good shape. It gets kind of complicated once you go down the line, but essentially you think of it as our budget is, the wages are a big deal, but it's just how you structure them. If you brought someone in on 250, you couldn't spend any money on the fee because it would all be taken up by those wages again.
Interesting.
So I hope that helps a little bit answer it. It's all gets a little complicated, but
Can we do the Chelsea thing? You know, where they stretch it out over 8 years? Is that still a thing, or have they closed it off?
Can't
We
do
need
it
to.
anymore.
We need
Can't
to
do it
exploit
anymore.
that
And
fucking thing, don't we? Jesus Christ.
the other thing that Chelsea do that, you know, we don't, and we never have, and City do it as well, is they've got these thousands of academy kids on loan everywhere, and they just sell them 5 million, 7 million, 10 million, and it's all profit. And so every year they do it, and every year it takes them out of, you know, and then they sell players that their managers want, like, you know, Conor Gallagher this year, which is going to be a huge amount of profit for them, and sell hotels to themselves.
Is he another one as well, Chalobah?
Like so, yeah, they should make something on Chalobah if they let him go too. So, yeah, I mean, we don't have necessarily that, but McTominay, like if we sold McTominay and Greenwood, for example, you could practically this summer spend a hell of a lot of money just on the basis of those two alone.
Yeah, we were selling youth players for pittance. Like, what was it? Zidane Ekbelt went for $1 million. Charlie McNeil went for like, it's just like, for fuck. Well, how is James Trafford going for
model, you know?
Yeah, James Trafford's going for 20 million and we're selling pittance like it's bollocks.
Part of the problem is, of course, that, you know, it's kind of a weird one, right? But for whatever reason, you know, we don't have academy products that we sell to somebody else and they go and turn into stars. We don't have those.
No.
We have good academy products in United, but we don't have ones that go elsewhere and produce. It's kind of a weird one because United's academy is very successful, but only within United.
Yeah.
Not really anywhere else, right? Pogba's the last one, went to Juventus, you know, and turned into what he was, right? But that's about it. Beyond that, you can't think of many examples of actual academy products from United that went and turned into something big elsewhere. But City and Chelsea have a lot of them. A lot of them. Especially, I mean, Chelsea have a ton. I mean, you think about all the players that have come through Chelsea as young players. It's insane, right? So people will pay for that potential. And that's why you get Trafford going for X amount and this and that. So
there is a lot of if you look at like the teams across the Premier League, there's so many United graduates though, academy graduates in every team. Yeah. Like it's insane the amount of things. Like you go through, it's like he played at United, played at United. So
Mate, I remember fucking Liverpool selling Brewster for like 25 mil, and I was like, what on earth is going on here? You know, like I do think we can get more for our talents. I know some of them might not have gone on to think, but I definitely think we can. Just before we think, Sam, can you make sure you smash a like on the video, please? If we, like I said, if we get to 100, I'll drop the members video in the chat. I don't know how many we're on at the moment.
62.
Sam, I'm sure you can.
62.
Right, okay. So we're 38 likes off 100. If we hit 100, we'll drop it. Trust me. Sam, sorry, go on.
Yeah, so we just spoke about academy prospects and all that sort of stuff. So there's this story that came out, I think it was this morning. Sir Jim Ratcliffe and also wanted to spend £50 million on the upgrade of the Aon training complex, I think is the name. A lot of rumours about it being moved a couple of months ago and redesigns and all this stuff. The architect of the Leicester one's involved, I believe. And then the guy who's actually making the sort of design of it, he designed like the Shard and a few different things as well. Is this a temporary measure just to bring the training facility up to code and then the plan is to move it and do something new anyway? Or is this the actual, no, we're just putting all the money back into Carrington and we're just going to upgrade it? And the second part is, what's going to be the benefit of this? Like, what can we expect in terms of like recovery improvement? Can we expect like more development in the academy players? Like, what's the benefits of this?
So it's kind of curious because the original plan was to make renovations this summer and then tear it down and start over again later. I mean, 50 million is a lot of money to do that, though. That is a lot. But then you wonder if they have a different potential ground available. We don't have all these details yet, but if they have a different location available, you know, maybe that turns in, you know, you build a new first team one because it could take a few years, you know, to build something really big out. That you build that for the first team. And then you turn this one into the academy and the women's team and all of that, and it's just a big enhanced facility for them. Maybe you know, I don't know on that front exactly. You know, Ten Hag himself said they were going to tear it down, right?
Yeah.
So I think there's still a plan to do that. That you're going to build something new later. 50 million is a lot of money.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm not sure. In terms of the benefits, there's a lot. And this is Sir Dave Brailsford's been leading this whole thing on the training ground. This is an area where, of course, he has a lot of expertise because it's not specifically related to football, but related to athletic performance, right? Diet, training, fitness, wellness, all of the factors that go into that environment, these types of things. And a couple of the issues that were raised to me in the past that they want to resolve is, for example, things like the shared locker room, dressing room between the youth and the first team, and the training actually results in stupid problems because legally they can't be in there at the same time due to ages and things like that, where you have to time your, it messes it up, right?
Is that the Sancho thing?
So that,
where he had to be locked in a thing, and he had to give him his lunch because he couldn't be around the under 8. Like, what the fuck?
Right, but it's the same on the other side. Like, the kids can't go in there to change, and then first team has to wait. It's complicated, and there was talk about the positives of the intermingling of the academy and the first team, but the problem is it actually logistically causes issues for the first team in terms of how they schedule things, how they do things, that it doesn't make it ideal, that it's not distraction free. There would be stuff with, as I heard it, of random staff and people and such coming in, and the first players are eating, and people are taking pictures, videos, and stuff that you don't want people necessarily involved in. Yeah, that you don't want people necessarily involved in.
Like, you work there, have some professionalism. Like sorry to interrupt, but like,
sell through the chicken burger like that.
Yeah, like I worked in production for a few years, TV and commercial stuff, and we filmed with like stars and celebrities. First rule is, don't take photos of them. Don't ask them for pictures. It's the first rule. It's literally the first thing you do. Like, don't do it.
It's like professional, isn't it?
Yeah, and so there's that, and then there's what was the last thing I was going to say on it? There's the injury aspect to it. Improving some of the resources with regards to, like, we've heard about like the warm-up stations and things like that, where there's a bit more time and prep and area set aside for warming up before training and things. But there's other aspects too. One of the problems with the medical side of things and the rehab of injuries is not having the space and the resources to deal with certain types of injuries, certain long-term injuries, certain rehab things, and that they are going to be involved in too. I remember what I was going to say. And then the last thing is going to come down to diet and food as well, that rather than being maybe like a canteen style, come in, here's all the options, order whatever you want type of deal, being a little more specialized on the dietary side of it, having the resources for a bit more of a specialized diet, individualized. That's a big deal with Ineos and Sir Dave Brailsford, is individualizing everything from fitness plans to diet to nutrition, all aspects of nutrition to rehab to all of it to monitoring. So I think you need the space, you need the actual like infrastructure to do a lot of those things, because it's not easy, and you can't just have everybody sat at a bench and you're trying to figure out the diets and nutrition and all that to make sure you're getting the most out of it. So I think those are big aspects. I really, really expect the medical side of things to improve.
Please, please fucking improve it.
Really
Jesus Christ.
I mean, you heard the comments from Luke Shaw, coming back early, these types of things as well, and the push for that. There's been changes to the physios since Gary Driscoll came in for a reason. That I would suggest is tied to things like that of those types of things, where players and a lot of individuals felt like they were being poorly advised, to take to excess risks, that there wasn't things being set up properly between everybody. So I definitely think that all this hand in hand is no matter who we buy, and I know this is the view of Ineos, so no matter who we buy and who we have, they're not available, then it means nothing. Everything you do still comes down to how the player's making it on the pitch,
Yeah, obviously absolutely. A huge part of it. We've gone through quite a bit of detail there, James, so I want to switch up a little bit, if I may.
Of course.
Now, this section, this section is called transfer temperature, okay? So we're going to go red hot, or we're going to go ice cold. And I'm going to list some targets that we've been linked with this summer. And you go red hot if you think it's a serious possibility, and it's a given. Ice cold if you think it's nonsense. And if you're somewhere in between, you can have a lukewarm or something, let's just say, for example, if you're not entirely sure. And also to the lovely viewers as well who are in the chat currently at the minute, get your fire emojis or ice emojis if you believe a similar thing based on your opinion, if you get a sense it's going to happen, or if not. Are we ready, James?
Ready.
Sam, are we ready?
Yeah, first one's on screen.
Awesome. So Jared Branthwaite,
Red hot, yeah, for sure.
Red hot. That's a
On
given.
fire,
Nice
that
tapping.
one, yeah.
Yeah, nice tapping
Yeah,
at the
that's
start.
tapping. That's an easy one.
Lenny Yoro.
It's a bit more than lukewarm.
Okay, so what's between lukewarm and red hot?
I'm looking at your thing. You've got like cold, lukewarm.
What's the? Do you know before
hot.
the kettle boils, it's like bubbling, like simmering. Simmering? Can we have simmering?
Is that what we're going with? Simmering?
Simmering? I would say simmering is good because it's real. It's a real deal. It's a real
deal.
Okay. Simmering.
There we go.
Simmering. Let's put it there.
Okay.
Nick hates that we've put in a tea reference halfway through the show already.
Oh, don't get me started on that. Don't get me started. João Neves.
I'm gonna say at the moment cold.
Nick's good.
That's heartbreaking.
Absolutely good.
I really want him.
Like Frankie de Jong before. I'm sorry to disappoint.
Oh yeah. Bringing memories back.
Ruined his day there. Absolutely ruined his day.
Yeah, you ruined my holiday. Xerxes.
Xerxes is simmering, but it could reach hot potential pretty soon.
Okay,
depending on what kind of answers they get back.
Now we're cooking. Kirkes. I can never pronounce his name right. I don't think.
Warm. It's lukewarm at the moment.
Just kind of floating about.
It's there, but not much happening.
What would Bournemouth look for price wise? Because I've not seen any prices chucked about. What?
Yeah, I know. I've heard anything from 30 to 40. Would be realistic. Yeah.
Fair enough.
Okay. Ivan Toney.
Oh Jesus.
I've seen some stuff on that. I've seen quite a bit of stuff.
There's genuine interest in him. I mean, there is, and we didn't. Well, I won't interrupt the section for this.
No.
Go.
You want to
expand?
No, it's just the whole. It's the whole striker. There's a very much a push for these from United at this point in time for this different type of striker. To Rasmus Højlund, and like you said, you read in the Athletic piece about Rasmus Højlund and the Rashford thing as well, and some of the tactical differences, and that is actually it's not just Rashford. I mentioned earlier about Bruno Fernandes. You remember his partnership with Anthony Martial, how well they played together. With Martial, someone dropping deep, Bruno often running up almost, into the attacking space ahead of the striker. They feel like in a lot of instances, the strength of the team fits a striker that kind of drops in a bit, overlapping fullbacks instead of necessarily always inverting into these wingers who all like to cut inside, So, yeah, there's definitely an interest in a profile of a striker. Rasmus Højlund is young, right? He's young. He's going to develop. He's going to round out his game. But he's the only player to. What happens if his back injury flares up for a few months? You don't risk back injuries and things. You need somebody in there. But it's also a different profile, and they're very, very interested in that different profile. Xerxes, Tony, where they're a bit more well-rounded, a bit more able to. Almost operate in like a number 10 role, even in some ways.
He's going to be expensive, though, any Tony has to be.
Yeah, that's the issue. Yeah, and that's what keeps it on the low side is concerns over attitude and the price. Yeah.
Okay. We're going to do the second half now, but also if you have any questions for James whatsoever, get them in the chat like a live Q&A, and we'll get into them towards the end to kind of finish the show off.
Somebody's put in the chat, bring back a Gallo.
I mean, but you even remember that I thought Weghorst was almost hilariously bad at times as a striker.
Yeah.
But in a team sense,
he worked hard. He worked his fucking ass off.
Yeah. Rashford benefited a lot.
He did. Yeah, he did exactly that. The team was better. It's a weird thing because it's so often football is fit over talent, how they all fit. The sum of the parts is greater than the individual pieces for sure. No doubt about that. How they all work together.
Yeah, right. Second half, let's do it. Matheus Cunha.
I will say cold at the moment.
Cold. I did see that video clip of him.
Somebody asked him on holiday, didn't they?
Just like, what the
I don't think anything's happening. As an expensive player, he'd be really expensive.
Very expensive, yeah.
They
just bought like 50 million.
Didn't they just buy him as well?
They just bought him and he did well, so he's going to be 80, 90. I mean, they won't want to sell. They don't want to sell him.
This one should be an interesting one for the chat. Jeremy Frimpong.
Cold.
Okay. Surprised me. I thought it might be a lukewarm, but okay.
Expensive and not a fullback in the slightest.
For his release clause,
especially at
though.
a back four.
He's a wing back. He's an absolute wing back.
35, yeah, 35 million.
Is that expensive?
It's a lot for a backup. Yeah, 34 or 35 million is a lot for a backup who doesn't actually play in that position. But if we want a right winger instead of Elise, we could go for
half price.
Yeah.
Inacio.
Lukewarm.
Yeah. How much are we talking for Inacio? Like, how much? Because I've seen prices 50? Banded about 50. Okay.
Yeah. A bit expensive. That's why he's probably not first choice in terms of talent versus cost, but probably 50,
Yeah. Fofana from Monaco.
We'll say simmering on this one. We'll see about this. This one, I think that something's going to be moving on him. Whether it involves United or not, I think something's moving on him pretty soon. I would say it could go cold in like a day as a deal elsewhere, But I'll
as
say
it stands right now,
for some intrigue.
It's simmering. Okay. And the last one, what everybody wants to know, and a lot of people have been asking in the chat, Michael Elise.
He knows something. That's why
I wish we had that, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire music, where it's like, dum, 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 dum,
it's a tough one. It is. This one is really, really tough because the interest from United side is really, really there. It is really strong. They really do like him. I mean, and I don't think he's ready to immediately just choose to go to Chelsea. They might even not go to Chelsea at all. I could very much see him turning that down.
Is he that big of a United fan? Is he like a massive fan? Is that what it is?
He's a United fan, but he's an interesting kind of character from everything I hear about him. He's not arrogant, but he's somebody who has a lot of self-confidence, like an enormous amount of self-confidence. You can see in the way he plays, he kind of strolls a little bit, like it really calm, really composed, really self-aware. So I think he backs himself to end up being at the biggest club in England at some point in time. I think that means something to him. If we have the money, it's like this could be hot. The minute they could afford him, if they could move Greenwood out and Sancho, hot. So in a week, they could be right there in for him. They could be right there in for him. So we'll keep it on simmering at the moment, but they could be right in the mix with him.
Nice. Sam. I enjoyed that section. It was quite good. Yeah, I was going to say, do you want to read out some questions in the chat if you can?
There's a couple I think these are jokes, but fuck it. They're Real Reds Ultras, so let's ask James anyway. Welbeck on a free or any chance of getting Vegas back from Dino and Ed?
No.
Don't know if they're being serious, but there you go. Does Amrabat stay, or is that done?
I don't think so. I don't think it's likely. I think it's very, very unlikely that he stays. Yeah.
Okay. James mentioned some South American Croatian youth talents before. Does he expect us to sign any for the academy or the first team?
No, and I think because we're not ready, like the setup, the rounding, like once Dan Ashworth is in there because he drove a lot of that with Brighton, the connections to South America, it was involved in a lot of that. I don't think we're ready in terms of how you develop these players and get them into the team yet. I don't think we're ready this summer, but I think maybe by next we'll start pulling people in, having deep places lined up for them to go to develop further and work on that. But I don't think we're ready at the moment to deal with those types of players.
Any of our satellite clubs, I think he's referring to, is it Nice and what's the other team?
Lausanne.
Ready to do business with any of their talent?
Aside from Toribio, I wouldn't say that there's anybody else likely from either club at this point in time. There's the kid Pafundi that they might buy at Lausanne, but he's not close to being, like a United player at this point.
Yeah. Right. Sorry, Sam, before you get to it, just on Todibo very quickly. Lequit put something out, 20 million. I was like, surely that's got to be fucking nonsense. What's going on there?
Yeah, so you have this issue in France with the TV deal not going through, where the clubs have this major issue financially at the moment where they need money, and so they're kind of suggesting a bit of the of a fire sale of players. I don't think that's the case. There's a little bit of a danger here too, which is because of the connection between the clubs. United can't really just get away with paying like a bottom dollar price on him.
Sorry,
There has to be some.
I've just seen
the question.
I read that too. I was yeah.
But you kept much better composure than I did. Sorry, Richard. What are you playing at, mate? What are you doing? We're trying to have a conversation here, Richard. Jesus, man, Richard. One of the community members,
really funny,
legends.
I'm gonna pin
where do we go from here? Sorry, continue your point.
No worries. They gotta pay a fair price. I guess that's how I'd put it. And I don't think that's market price. I think market price is still gonna be somewhere in the range of 30, 35 to 40.
Latest on Ashworth and sorry.
I actually thought you was going to ask that then.
No, I'm not asking it. I'm not fucking asking that question.
I was like, I was thinking, no,
I'm not asking that. I'm not asking that. I'm not asking that. I'm not asking the question.
Sorry, go on.
Latest on Ashworth, will he be in before Jan 2025? And any news on who might be head of recruitment role?
Ooh.
I don't think Dan Ashworth will be in this summer. I think it'll probably move a little later in the window once there's no chance of him having an impact on United summer, because that's just how Newcastle are being on the situation.
Autumn?
So
Are we thinking?
I think he'll be in the fall. Yeah, I think he will be in the fall, but after the window.
Okay.
And I think on the head of recruitment, I think that it's going to again be maybe somebody they'll want Dan Ashworth to appoint.
Okay.
They're busy with, they have a current head of recruitment technically, and Steve Brown doing work right now. Mm-hmm. He's busy. He's involved in this summer. I can't see them changing that in the middle of all of this, because him and Hargreaves and Wilcox are all very busy at the moment, and and I've been prepping for the summer a long, long time. So I think it'd probably be again after the window.
It's a shame, innit? Because could really do within this summer with everything that's ongoing. But yeah, I imagine Newcastle are going to be pretty stubborn on it. How many likes we got on the thing, Sam? Should we just fucking drop it anyway?
Let's have a look.
What are we saying? Might as well be nice.
82.
Yeah, it's close enough. The Euros are on tonight. We've got a lot of stuff going over the weekend. Let's just drop it in the chat if you can. Yeah. While Sam's doing that, James, what are we up to during the summer? Any exciting things coming up? I know last year pre-season there was a couple of things you did. Was it with Paddock and a couple other things? Any plans at all?
Yeah, well, there's the tour in the US obviously a bit later in July. I'm working on getting a few people onto the channel as well, but I think I'll be attending all the preseason games here in the US. Kind of, it's all over like the span of 1 week, so it's like going all over the place for that. But then there's some events that are being put on by United in combination with others, like the last one, the Paddock and us were at the like a convention in Las Vegas where we had there were speakers and things like that. But I'll definitely should be at most of those events. The club reached out to me to ask to be a part of those again, which is cool.
Yeah.
And yeah, so in the media space at the games as well is the plan to do all those things. So the best I can get on this side during summer. So that should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, sounds very interesting.
Who are you backing in the Euros, James? Who you pick to win?
I mean, I will support England, but I have a strong feeling it'll be France.
To win it.
It's a super chat, Nick. Do you want me to read it?
Yeah, so just before I read that, because I was going to do that as like the last question. So obviously, James, for our community in the chat at the moment, James dropped a video a couple of hours ago. I've just put a link in the chat. So for any of you guys want any kind of up-to-date news, I mean, that is like quite literally bang on. So make sure you go check that out for all the Real Red Ultras in the comments section. And yeah, sorry, someone's put a super chat in, so we'll just end with this, James, if that's okay with you. Any news on the Glazers selling the rest of their shares in around 12 months' time?
Well, obviously, there's been no new discussions over it as they're working on sorting the club out. But I think you can see by how it's gone since Ineos have got in that they're not going anywhere, and that this is a lot more than just someone investing in 25%. I mean, they've taken over everything at the club at this point in time, and in most instances they're effectively operating as if they're the complete owners of the club, not just the football side of it, but the commercial, the stadiums, the the training grounds. I mean, these are all things that are outside the scope of just the football club, the sporting aspect of it. So my kind of analysis and information of it originally when they had the deal is that there's a lot of groundwork laid for them to get another chunk, let's say, of it in 18 months time. And I think they will. I think they'll take another piece. Maybe buy out some of the other siblings and end up with a majority control in 12, 18 months or something. I strongly believe that is what will happen. There's a lot of money being invested and manpower and resources by Ineos into this. And I don't see that them being satisfied sitting at that 25%. And I don't think it's going to be something that the Glazers are against. I think that they're going to. I think this is all eyes wide open for everybody involved in it now on where this goes in the future.
Perfect. And that is our time, an hour of perfect conversation, because we are bang on the point, pretty much 10 seconds over. James, I don't want to speak for Sam as well, but we always love having, well, I am speaking for Sam as well, because I know he does.
I hope.
Yeah, we always love having you on. It's one of the favourite shows to do, just because it's insightful. We get right into it and no messing about, and it's not absolute bollocks, like 90% of the stuff that gets put on X. So always love having you on. Pre-season's an absolute fucking whirlwind for you, because it sounds pretty exciting. And yeah, Sam, anything else you want to add on before we head off?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank James. Like I said, every time we put the bat signal up, he's willing to jump on, happy to do it, which is it's quite a rarity. Like, we've reached out to a lot of people. I won't name names, but doesn't always get reciprocated. Like, but James and Jay Motti are always like willing to be a part. So yeah. It's appreciated. Also, I hope one day we do an American preseason tour, and then me and Nick go out and we do content, and we're able to actually meet you in person, and we can have a beer and stuff. That'd be great.
Absolutely. Yeah, one day. Thank you to everyone in the chat. Thank you to James. We'll see you guys in the next one.
Peace.
See you later.